Chapter 8. Ben's Idea. The days passed very much the same, each visiting the dragons almost every day. The days turned into weeks, the weeks to months, and soon spring was coming to a close. One fine day that May, Ben was hurrying to get to lunch. He had a plan too good to hold back from the others. Finally, lunch came, and they all sat down at the table to eat and share dragon news. "Guys," said Ben, "I have the most brilliant of brilliant ideas." The others leaned in to hear. "What?" they said. "We should all of us have a big get-together," said Ben. "Wait a minute. Us and the dragons?" said Scott. "Yep," said Ben, proud of his idea. "It's utterly impossible," said Scott. "Well," said Philip, "it would be difficult to pull off, but we could do it if the time is right." "That's what I was aiming at," said Ben. "But where would we go? I mean, where would we meet?" asked Scott, still skeptical. Said Ben thoughtfully. "I would be glad to host it at my house," said Philip. "You really would?" said Ben. "Sure," Philip replied. "But even if we could pull it off, I can't fly on a dragon. I don't even know if Skardek would let me," said Scott, refusing to accept the fact that they were going to this at all. "Why don't you want to do this?" said Ben. "Because you're afraid to fly?" he said. "Well, now that you mention it, yeah, I think so," said Scott. "Flying is no biggie. It's lots of fun. It might be a little scary at first, but you'll get used to it," said Ben. They bickered a little about this, but in the end, Scott gave in. "All right, I'll learn to fly. I hope the get-together is worth it," he said. Thank you very much, Scott," said Ben. The next day, Scott whistled to Skardek. The next day, Scott whistled to Skardek. Butterflies flying in his stomach, the dragon came casually. "Hello, mate," said Skardek. Scott returned his greeting with a weak hello. He did his homework, trying to go slowly as possible. He was squeamish about heights, but he thought the entire time, I can do it. Inevitably, he finished his homework. He finished his homework, and was dismayed to find it took hardly any time at all. "Skardek?" he said with a gulp. "What?" asked the dragon. "Could you fly with someone riding on your head?" asked Scott. "I most likely could," said the dragon. "Why do you ask?" "Well, I kind of wanted to ride you," said Scott, his fingers crossed. "Of course," said Skardek. "I knew you'd ask sooner or later," he said. "You did?" asked Scott. "Oh, yes. So did the human who taught me to speak. He was an excellent rider. Very considerate of me." "So, you will teach me to ride?" said Scott. "Only when you're ready," said Skardek. "All right," said Scott after a moment. "I'm ready." "All right, mate. Climb onto my head. That's it. Now sit behind the base of my horns. Hold on tight by them. There. That's good. Now I'm off. Now I'm going to lift off, okay?" said Skardek. Scott shut his eyes. "Okay," he said, and Skardek lifted off. Scott screamed as loud as his lungs could bear, right into Skardek's ear. "Put me down! Put me down!" he yelled. But Skardek paid him no attention. Because Skardek was smart. He knew that Scott would get over it. Gradually they flattened out, and the beat of Skardek's wings slowed to a steady pace. Scott pried open his eyes and looked down. It was a beautiful, terrifying, and dizzying sight. It was a beautiful, terrifying, and dizzying sight at the same time. "How do you like it up here, mate?" said Skardek. "It's amazing," said Scott. "I can see the whole town." "Yep," said Skardek. So you do this every day?" asked Scott. "Every day," Skardek replied. It's wonderful up here. Hey, are we going down?" said Scott. "Want to go down?" said the dragon replied. "Oh, all right," Scott agreed. They immediately started to dive. Scott screamed like a girl. Ah! Skardek was laughing and cheering all the way. Woo! Woohoo! They went on a straight free fall for several minutes. Then Skardek's wings unfolded as they spiraled down towards the ground and gently landed. Scott dismounted and flopped on the ground. He stayed there for a few seconds, then said, "Can we do it again?" Skardek smiled. "Just no screaming this time."